6 months into the moribund maladministration of the Akufo Addo-led NPP administration, it has been a sordid story after sordid story. Having flown on the wings of lavish and unachievable campaign promises to come into power, it is not surprising that President Akufo Addo and his over-bloated government are swimming and groping in the dark and not achieving any meaningful results. The fairy tale promises that the NPP made in opposition is beginning to catch up with them. And many of the persons who voted for the current leadership are undoubtedly counting the days and wishing that the next election will take place today, so they can rush to the voting centers and vote out this highly incompetent government. Indeed, they are too anxious to go back for their color televisions and hand over the black and white to their owners. Two days ago, President Akufo Addo, on his own volition, chose to give more meaning to his failing leadership by calling a press conference which was full of long talk but with empty substance. Obviously, the ability to memorize and rattle English lines with strange intonations does not necessarily lend heavy weight to substance to speech. Ladies and gentlemen, in keeping with our avowed assurance to offer very responsible opposition and to at all times hold the government's feet to the fire of accountability, we deem it extremely necessary to discuss with the good people of Ghana a number of worrying developments which completely debase governance and threaten the well-being of the nation. We are going to address issues along the lines of 1, lawlessness, insecurity, and government-backed terrorism. 2, composition of government, nepotism, and unbridled partisanship. 3, lack of commitment to fight corruption. 4, arrogance of power, lies, and dishonesty. Ladies and gentlemen, it is universally acknowledged that the first and foremost responsibility of any well-meaning government is to ensure the security and safety of its citizens. In the last 6 months, there's no denying the fact that lawlessness has been allowed to fester and run riot, with an unprecedented upsurge in violent crimes to the disbelief of Ghanaians. Hardly does a day pass by without the news outlets being inundated with stories of horrifying and gory crimes being committed with brazen bravado across the length and breadth of the country. A state of insecurity has given rise to fear-filled anxiety amongst innocent Ghanaians who are struggling to make ends meet under the current excruciating and suffocating economy. Armed robbers and armed gangs are now operating with impunity and killing our policemen in broad daylight without any form of fear nor trepidation. For the first time in the 4th Republican dispensation, a political party in the shape of the NPP has incorporated militancy and violent extremism into its way of operations. To give meaning to militancy and violence, a group of brigands and outright criminals have been assembled and given such blood-clotting names as Invisible Forces, Delta Forces, Kandahar Boys, Volta Crocodiles, and also giving official covering from the seat of government to perpetuate their illegal existence. These criminal gangs have been allowed to wage a psychological war on the security apparatus by attacking and openly killing policemen in uniform. Very credible intelligence information reaching us has it that a lot of the armed robbery and killing of our hard-working police officers is being done by some elements belonging to the aforementioned militant goons, squads, associated with the MPP. Per the information we are getting, these criminals are very much aware that they have full government backing, and that in the event that they are even arrested by the police, they will be released by their political godfathers. A typical case in point is what happened in Kumasi, where criminals who beat up the regional security coordinator and also robbed up a circuit judge and disrupted court proceedings are walking around as free persons because Gloria Akufo's Attorney General's Department decided to file a no case and discontinue the matter in court. And only 3 days ago in Tema, while a circuit court was sitting, so-called armed robbers raided the court, freed the armed robber being tried, and terrorized everybody in the court. 3 days ago in Tema. Yeah. Broad daylight, in the morning. Ladies and gentlemen, it is common knowledge that the president gave his tacit endorsement to the brigandry of the MPP state-sponsored criminal gangs to operate with such impunity when a serving assistant superintendent of police in uniform was actually beaten up by the invisible forces at no less a place than the Flagstaff House in the immediate aftermath of the assumption of power by President Akufo Addo. Apparently, the master plan is to weaken the resolve of the police and security services to function at full throttle and thereby leave the armless citizenry at the mercy of state-sponsored criminal gangs. Did we vote for change, for us to be killed, or we voted for development and growth? Unable to fulfill the plethora of promises made to these criminal gangs, the government is sitting idly by and watching the criminals take the law into their own hands and do whatever they want to do to satisfy their whims and caprices. Ladies and gentlemen, is it not terrifying that our cherished and respected police service is suddenly walking on its knees and seeming helpless in the face of the gruesome murders of men in uniform? Listening to the Inspector General of Police, David Asante Apietu, virtually throw up his hands in despair in an interview with the media last week, is certainly a harbinger of the danger that lies ahead of this dear nation of ours. When no less a person than the IGP goes on radio and sounds very desperate, it leaves a lot to be desired. In direct reaction to the breakdown of law and order, as well as the desperation in the voice of the IGP, Dr. Kwesi Eni, a security expert, is also foreboding doom for the nation if no quick action is taken by the government to restore confidence in the security services in general and the police service in particular. In only 6 months, a peaceful Ghana that was handed over to President Akufo Addo has suddenly become a pool of blood, and innocent blood is being shed on a daily basis via all the kinds of horrific deaths. Why should it be so? We ask, why did the President of Ghana not speak poignantly to the issue of restoring law and order? Why did the Commander-in-Chief of Ghana's armed forces not do his utmost best to assuage the fears of Ghanaians that he will not allow Ghana to slide into a lawless state of anarchy and chaos? It is about time President Akufo Addo stops junketing around, traveling abroad frivolously, and pin himself down to begin doing some hard work in an acceptable manner and not in this wishy-washy manner. Why is Mother Ghana bleeding so badly under the watch of President Akufo Addo and his overbloated and clueless MPP government? As it is said in the Holy Book, a nation suffers when it is ruled by unrighteous people. Ladies and gentlemen, as regards the issue of the president's frivolous travels, we are demanding a full disclosure of how much money he takes per diem, as per diem on such travels. Is it $5,000 or $4,000 a day, as it is being rumored? How much do his many followers and escorts also take? With the current budgetary allocation to the office of the president, far exceeding major ministries, it is not surprising that the president and his courtiers are really dissipating the nation's scarce resources without let nor hindrance. Contrary to the MPP's promise to protect the public purse, President Akufo Addo has done the exact opposite by putting in place the most heavy government ever in the history of the Fourth Republic. We are simply unable to reconcile the appointment of 110 ministers amidst the creation of useless and amorphous ministries. We submit that the ministries for public procurement, business development, regional reorganization, special initiatives, monetary and evaluation, planning, aviation, harbors and railways, amongst others, are all unnecessary and constitute a drain on the public purse. The function of these redundant ministries can be performed by existing ministries, departments, and agencies. Ladies and gentlemen, a direct consequence of the over-bloated government is that, 1, the nebulous Akufo Addo Bawumia government has given more money, 1.5 billion Ghana cedis, to the office of the president in this year alone than all the money received by the same office under the entire 4 years of President Mahama. 2, the office of the president under Akufo Addo is receiving more money for goods and services than the amount that a majority of ministries are receiving to purchase goods and services they need to work with. At the time that the office of the president is getting unprecedented amount of money to be spent in a frivolous manner, the universities, Ghana Health Service, Environmental Protection Agency, the National Blood Bank, and other such agencies have been ordered to surrender all internally generated funds, leaving such entities with nothing to operate with. For a fact, the profligate expenditure that has surrounded all the wasteful state dinners is not the best way of protecting the public purse. On the day of inauguration alone, the Akufo Addo Bawumia government spent lavishly on 3 separate and very expensive state banquets. And from that day, it has been lavish state banquet after state banquet, while innocent Ghanaians are dying on a daily basis because nurses who were given letters of employment by the NDC government have been sacked by Nana Akufo Addo's government under the guise that there's no money to pay their salaries. Is it no sheer callousness for the government to have money to be importing expensive dinner suits and bow ties from the United Kingdom, Paris, and Italy, and be spending lavishly on state banquets, whilst innocent people die in our hospitals because there are no enough nurses to give Medicare? For the information of President Akufo Addo, governance is not a tea party. Governance is a very serious business meant for serious people, and the current president of Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana has to get serious and govern in a more serious manner than he is currently doing. Indeed, we are not surprised that at the recent Bosch Diaspora Summit, one of the participants boldly pointed out to an arrogant Deputy Minister of Trade that the government needs to be serious and that they, the people from the diaspora, are not in Ghana to play. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, It is very sad spectacle listening to the President of Ghana not be on top of issues at all. It is clear as daylight that the President was cavorting and jumping over the issues and not landing on any form of solid ground. We are not in the least surprised at the inability of the President to give solid answers to the questions posed because he spends more time abroad than within the country. We want to state, for the avoidance of any shred of doubt, that for the first time in the history of Ghana, we now have a president who has become a legal alien. He has become a legal alien because he spends more time abroad than at home. Hence, his ability to be on top of governance issues, hence his inability to be on top of governance issues as he grossly exhibited at the last press meeting. Is it not sad that the people who were quick to refer to other persons as incompetent are within a short period of 6 months exhibiting a rare form of gross and gargantuan incompetence? Having campaigned on the wings of blatant untruths so as to demonize the NDC government, we were told that given the opportunity, an Akufo Addo Bawumia government will swing the magic wand and turn Ghana around into a paradise within 100 days. We ask, where is the free SHS? Where is the reduction in the prices of electricity tariffs via abolishing the energy sector levy? Where is the promise to pay all monies due customers of DKM, God is Love, Perfect Edge, Little Drops, and other microfinance scam schemes? Where is the $1 million that was going to be carried in Ghana must go back to all constituencies? Where is the payment due to all contracts? The restoration of teacher and nursing trainee allowances. Where are the decent jobs that was promised the youth? Where is the reduction in corporate tax from 25% to 20%? Where is the reduction of the 3% special import levy? Where is the reduction in the cost of driver's licenses and insurance? Where is the one dam, one village? And where is the one factory, one district? President Akufo Addo failed to address the above issues and rather chose to disingenuously skirt around them. The president may have succeeded in skirting around his promises when he met the press, but he and the MPP cannot skirt around the true verdict of the majority of Ghanaians, that Akufo Addo and Bawumia have failed woefully as managers of all affairs of state. Most definitely, President Akufo Addo is turning out to become like Kwaku Nancy. I say President Akufo Addo is turning out to be like Kwaku Nancy because in our Ghanaian folklore, Kwaku Nancy always begins as the most intelligent and shrewdest person, but ends up scampering to hide his embarrassment in his web. The embarrassment that is engulfing the Akufo Addo Bawumia government is becoming too much. President Akufo Addo and the MPP flew into power on the wings of mostly false allegations of corruption against the NDC government. In opposition, Akufo Addo styled himself as an avid fighter against corruption. As things stand now, the NPP government is sinking in quicksands of corruption, and the president is looking on with gaping helplessness. Now that Akufo Addo is president, he is only making unacceptable excuses to pull a veil over the massive corruption and blatant thievery that is taking place right under his nose at the presidency and all over the governance strata. The president's endorsement of ridiculous hooked-up BNI report on the contaminated oil scandal involving Alfred Boating, who is managing director of BOST, is a clear indication that the president cannot be relied upon to wage any meaningful war against corruption. In spite of the existence of incontrovertible proof of wrongdoing, including an unambiguous indictment of the petroleum sector regulator NPA, the president failed to dismiss and prosecute Alfred Obeng. Of course, it is common knowledge that Alfred Obeng heavily financed the campaign of Nana Akufo Addo, and so has been sent to BOST to do whatever it takes, including contaminating oil, to recoup his monies. Prior to the stinking BOST deal, was equally stinking 2.25 billion bond, the Ken bond, issued in the middle of the night by the finance minister, cousin of the president. Finance Minister Ken Oforiatta has still not been able to exonerate himself from the shady and dodgy bond deal, and the matter is subject of investigation before STRAC. Akufo Addo is yet to say a single word on the stinking bond deal by his cousin. Another financier of Akufo Addo, in the person of Kennedy Ajapong, has accused the president and his family and cronies of drowning themselves in the sea of corruption. And when the president was given the opportunity to debunk the assertion, he only laughed it off and ended up giving more credence to the assertion by Kennedy Ajapong. That is certainly not a sign of any strong commitment to fighting corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, arrogance, lies, and dishonesty have become the visible trademarks of the Akufo Addo Bawumia government. It has become as clear as daylight that the NPP was only lying to the public when they kept berating the NDC government for seeking external funds for development projects. The lies of the NPP have been badly exposed because in only 6 months, they have borrowed over 40 billion Ghana cedis in direct contravention of their sworn pledge never, with emphasis on never, to borrow if given the opportunity to govern. Who cannot remember the shrill voice of Dr. Bawumia all over the place, berating the NDC government for borrowing to develop the nation? Today, the same Bawumia is vice president, ahead of the economic management team, and we are witnessing unprecedented levels of borrowing. Indeed, if Nana Akufo Addo and Bawumia have borrowed a whopping 40 billion Ghana cedis in only 6 months, then by the time they run through their 4 years, Ghanaians will be saddled with about 640 billion Ghana cedis debt burden. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask, are we safe? Is the future of Ghana safe? If this is the reckless manner in which Akufo Addo Bawumia are going to be borrowing, It is only 6 months. The NPP appears to have been beaten deeply by the bug of arrogance. Only last week, Robert Ahumkalisi, Deputy Trade Minister, insulted members of the Ghanaian diaspora, referring to them as whinies, when they were genuinely complaining about the lazy attitude of the NPP ministers and appointees. Also, the procurement minister, Sarah Adwa Safo, was caught on tape telling the most befuddling lie about she having personally contacted the World Bank to build a community day senior high school in a Domi Kwabenya constituency. When indeed she doesn't even know the contractor. She doesn't know how we acquired the land. She has not been on the site to visit the contractor and the workmen. And on the inauguration of the school, she was invited. She never came. Adwa Safo has since gone into an embarrassing self-imposed exile after it came to light that she had no hand in the project, which is on record to be part of the 123 community day senior high schools complexes constructed during the period of President John Mahama. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, let me, as chairman and leader of the great NDC party, assure Ghanaians that we shall continue to be very effective, responsible, and constructive in drawing the attention of the already failing NPP government to more of its failings. There's no denying the fact that we bequeath a peaceful and cohesive nation to Akufo Addo and the NPP. We shall not sit and watch this dear nation of ours destroyed by nepotism, chronism, ethnicity, nor religious and tribal bigotry. The wanton dismissal of Ghanaians who have been lawfully employed in state institutions will not be allowed to go on with such impunity. The politically motivated mass transfers of public sector workers will not be allowed to continue in the capricious manner in which it began. Indeed, it is very unfortunate that when a misguided member of the press from Oman FM asked why public sector workers supposedly opposed to the NPP are still at post, the president did not seize the moment to school the lady and assure Ghanaians that we all have an inalienable right to work in freedom. We cannot have our country when President Akufo came. Supposed and suspected NDC operatives were all dismissed, including me. Yes. I was put on leave, and I resumed the leave when we won. 8 years leave without pay. You see? And then the places were filled with NPP people. We came back. President Mills said, no. We tried to do it. He says, demo. That's what he told me. I was full of vengeance, you know, and he schooled me to fear God. And we stopped it. We recruited people without their party colors between 2009 until we lost the elections in 2016. Now, can you imagine nurses who were in training? 8,000 of them. Could they all have been just NDC operatives? And these are the people who were shouting, vote for Nana, free SHS, free allowance, free training allowance here and there. Now they've all been sacked on suspicion that they are NDC people. Rich Hospital has been completed. It's waiting to be filled by NPP nurses. They are not there. So the hospital is there. The University of Ghana Teaching Hospital is there. It's been completed. They are waiting for NPP people to come from where? We cannot have a public service in this country filled with only NPP people. That we shall resist it. We shall resist it. That message must go clearly to the NPP. It is not correct. It must belong to Ghanaians. And Ghanaians must be allowed to work. President Akufo Addo must know that there cannot be any development without peace. And so it is incumbent on him and his team to do all they have to do to ensure that Ghanaians operate in an atmosphere of peace and tranquility. Ghanaians are already suffering under the pressure that the unfulfilled promises of the NPP has burdened them with. And at least Akufo Addo can, and the least Akufo Addo can do is to allow Ghanaians to suffer in peace and not in turmoil. Ghanaians to suffer in peace and not in turmoil. Ladies and gentlemen, We are in no doubt that at the time of leaving office in January 2017, the NDC has done a lot of hard work and spade work to leave a solid foundation for the NPP to easily build on if they are really committed to developing this nation and building a better Ghana, as opposed to developing their personal and family bank accounts at the expense of the state. As a proof of our works, Reach Hospital has been commissioned for public use. The GE early power project to generate 400 megawatts of power has also kick-started. Then any Sakofa hydrocarbon field has also been commissioned. Of course, the huge school buildings we have planted all over the country are ready to be occupied and give our pupils and students more decent places to learn. The increased enrollments in our teacher training colleges will also provide more teachers to make use of the modern structures that are currently available. Indeed, if there is much more stability in the power supply, it is because of the heavy investments that the NDC government under President Mahama made in the sector. Surely, in only 6 months, the NPP cannot lay claim to any work that it has done in the energy sector to result in a stable power situation as we have now. We trust that in the fortitude, perseverance, and resilience of Ghanaians, we acknowledge that we are dealing with very discerning minds and will stay committed to a responsible way of keeping the government on its toes, as well as offering constructive alternatives. We are therefore assured that even as we talk, as we walk through President Akufo Addo's imposed valley of the shadow of death, we shall not waver nor be cowed into submission by the negative activities of the NPP's state-sponsored evil forces. As we remember the 5th anniversary of the painful passing away of President John Ivasant Mills on Monday, July 24, 2017, we take this opportunity to re-echo a profound statement of his when he delivered his 3rd State of the Nation address in February 2011. Quote, "Ghana will not die." Ghana will live and give glory to God Almighty. Unquote.